Hi guys, this is Hirosaki. This story is all about what if Naruto had been raised by Kakashi his entire life and how would raising Naruto change Kakashi's life as well? Before we start, kindly like and subscribe to this channel and look over the description box for the author of this amazing storyline. Welcome aboard. Chapter 11, Recovery. Naruto's room. He was bored. That pretty summed up Naruto's feelings for the moment. He was sitting in this hospital with bandages over his chest, just staring at the plain white ceiling, the walls, or the empty beds. He was glad that they let him keep his mask at least, but he really wanted something to do, but he could barely walk. Some doctor called it chakra exhaustion, and when he explained it, Naruto didn't get a lot of it until his dad had summed it up as that he just used too much chakra and doing that leaves you weak. Why couldn't the doctor just explain things simply like that instead of using long-winded words? He had asked his dad that, and he just shrugged and said it was most likely how doctors made themselves feel smart and important. Naruto smiled at the memory, but that had been hours ago and now he just wanted someone to talk to. He wouldn't have minded if someone else was in the same room as him, but he had the room all to himself. So, he just sat there looking out the window trying to keep himself busy. He lost track of time when he heard his door open and he looked, and his day suddenly got a lot better. There was Hinata with what looked like some flowers for him, with Sakura, Ino, Koji, Shikamaru, and even Neji. The four that hadn't seen him before had wide eyes at the sight of him in the bed. Until that moment they had a few doubts just how serious the injuries were, but there were the bandages over his chest where Hinata had told them where he had been stabbed. "Thank God you guys came, I was going out of my mind here alone," Naruto smiled behind his mask. They came forward as Hinata blushed as she laid the flowers next to his table. "TT, these are for you, Naruto-kun." "Hey, thanks Hinata-chan, so how are you doing?" he asked, seeing the bruise on her face. She saw what he was looking at and turned her face to hide it. She told him that she was fine, and she was touched that despite his injuries he was more worried about her. Sakura stepped forward, a little worried about him. "Does it, hurt?" "What this?" "Nah, it's just a scratch." "A scratch?" Ino nearly yelled out. "You took a kunai to the chest, you should be dead. You have any idea how lucky you were? What were you thinking?" Naruto cringed a bit. Ino kind of reminded her of Anko when she was pissed. "What was I supposed to do? That guy was trying to take Hinata and I had to do something. Personally, I think that's pretty cool." Koji smiled while opening a bag of chips. He took one out and thought about something. "Here, want the first one?" "You bet, the food here sucks." Naruto took it, glad that his arms could work enough for him to feed himself. It was going to the bathroom that was the real embarrassing thing that he would never ever in his life tell anyone about. He brought it up to his face and then noticed the looks he was getting. They were all waiting to see him without the mask. Naruto just about to reach for it when his eyes grew wide as pointed out the window. "Oh my God, someone just jumped off the building." Everyone looked to the window, and when they heard the crunch, they turned to see Naruto munching on the chip with his mask on. Everyone's sweat dropped at that, feeling like an idiot falling for that. Neji had only cast a quick glance since he had already seen Naruto without the mask and had to smirk at Naruto. Ino had this eye twitch thing going on and made a resolve to one day see the boy without that mask on, no matter how long it took her. "Troublesome," Shikamaru muttered as he pulled out something from his backpack. "Well, if you're bored, you wanna play a game of shogi? Is that like Go? My dad taught me that and we play it at times, well, that and a few card games." Naruto asked as Shikamaru explained the game as he set up the pieces. The others began asking all kinds of questions about what happened, and Naruto, loving the spotlight, couldn't help but brag a bit on his exploit. Hinata had guessed at a few things, but when Naruto started to exaggerate, she felt a sweat drop forming. Shikamaru was focused on the game. Naruto wasn't that good since he started, but he seemed to be learning. Plus he figured that when Naruto adding in giant fireball justice, he was laying it on a bit thick. Ino wasn't sure what to believe, but she had to admit he told a nice story and he had rescued Hinata and taken a serious wound. Neji was only a bit interested in the fact that the ending seemed totally made up. He figured that Naruto either wanted a more exciting ending or he wasn't sure how it ended. For Koji and Sakura, they were wide-eyed and hung on every word. "Wow, that's pretty cool, that all happened," Koji said, finding out that he had just finished his first bag of chips and started looking for his backup supply. "Oh yeah, it's all true," Naruto lied. "You must be really strong then," Sakura said, wondering just how strong Naruto was. Where the hell is he? Came a very loud woman's voice. Everyone looked curious at the door while Naruto suddenly felt very afraid. He knew that voice and the tone like the back of his hand. The door was slammed open and there stood Anko in her usual clothing looking livid. The kids stared at the strange lady as she marched right up to Naruto. Hey Auntie Anko, how are you doing? She pointed a finger right at him. Don't you onto me, you brat. I come back from a nice easygoing mission and you know what I wanted to do? I wanted to relax, go to the hot springs, eat some dango, but what do I hear? I hear about you and what you did and that you were in the hospital. What the hell were you thinking? As Anko continued her rant on him, the other kids looked on, not sure how to handle this. Most just decided to just let the woman rant on, seeing that she was kind of scary. Hinata however stepped up to Anko while she was threatening him with something that involved snakes, pointed objects, and blunt force trauma. PP, please don't be mad at him, Naruto-kun was only saving me. Anko took her eyes off Naruto to look at the young, seeing her pleading expression. It didn't help that Hinata had this ability to just look cute and helpless at times, making people take it easy on her. The small bruise on her face didn't hurt either. Anko just gave a disgruntled sigh. She knew that Naruto did the right thing, but she wasn't going to tell him that. It would give him a swelled head and he needed to be more careful in the future. It's okay Hinata-chan, that's just her way of showing that she cares out. Naruto began rubbing the top of his head where Anko had hit him, although she had a satisfied smirk on her face doing it. A chuckling was heard and everyone turned to the window to see a man with very big silver hair, a vest only seen on shinins, and above in dark clothing with a mask and one eye hidden. Now Anko, you shouldn't go and hurt someone already in the hospital. Yeah. Naruto agreed with, earned him another smack to the head. He turned to the guy in the window. Dad, make her stop. At that, everyone who didn't know who Naruto's father was turned to look at the man who seemed to carry himself in a lazy manner that would make any Nara proud. The kids looked at the tall man who smiled under his mask, and if it wasn't for the mask, they wouldn't see any resemblance. Many of the kids figured that Naruto got his looks from his mother than his dad, since they didn't know he was adopted at this point, but later when they would find out would make a lot more sense. I don't know, I think Anko does make a point. After all, I can't smack you around unless it's in training, since that would be child abuse on my part, so I never will hit my children, so I think I'll let Anko handle that. Kakashi smirked at Naruto's horrified face as he quickly looked to Anko, who was cracking her knuckles. Then Kakashi turned to the other kids in the room. Ah, Hinata, nice to see you again, and I see Naruto has made some new friends. The man seemed friendly enough, so the kids started to introduce themselves to him. Kakashi was glad that Naruto had found some new friends after the events of last night. He knew that things for Naruto might never be the same, so having friends he could count on would be a big help to him later on. Niji, when no one was looking, decided to take a peek behind the mask with his Byakugan, but there was something odd about the mask. There were thin layers of chakra moving around the mask. He blinked and realized that the man actually had fibers that drained a very small amount of chakra. It didn't do anything noticeable, but the thin mess protected his face from even his abilities. Just how paranoid is he about people seeing his face, he wondered as Naruto's father talked with the kids. Little did he know that it was an old technique that Kakashi's father had greeted. Apparently in his youth the White Fang had lots of women trying to see his face too, and this had been developed when a bunch of Hyuga women saw through the mask, and it led to all sorts of problems for him, so he developed the technique. Kakashi learned it well and was going to teach Naruto when he started on his chakra training. So, you're really Naruto's father? Ino asked at the tall man and then looked to Naruto. Then how come he's so short? Hey. I'm not short, I just haven't finished growing up. Just face it, you're short, chibi. Anko smirked as Naruto glared at her for that. But at any rate, Naruto, you should take this chance to rest up, because after last night you're going to need it, Kakashi said to him, getting a bit more serious. Ever the master of words, Naruto said the only thing he could at that moment. I think I'll step up your training, and to make sure you don't slack off. Kakashi grinned as he turned to Anko. I'm sure that guy would love to help you train on days that I'm gone, and I'm also sure that Anko here wouldn't mind some time with you as well. Oh, this is going to be fun. Anko laughed in a sadistic way as the smile on her face made the kids take a few steps back. What the hell kind of family does Naruto belong to? Ino wondered, looking at the strange man that was Naruto's father and the crazy-looking woman that was his aunt. She had no idea who this guy was, but he was in this family. She had a feeling he would be a weird one too. She looked at Naruto and he had gone very pale and looked like he had wished that he had died last night. Which was exactly what Naruto was thinking. His dad was tough on him with his training, and knowing how insane his uncle trained made Naruto get a seeking feeling in his stomach, but it was the training that he would get with Anko that's what really scared him. She knew how she could get, and the fact that his dad was letting her loose on him gave him shivers down his spine. Oh man, just one more year, then dad will let me join, that is if I survive. Suddenly Naruto figured that either he would be in great shape for the academy, or he wouldn't live to see that day. Later. After that day, Sakura and Ino were walking home. Ino was talking, but Sakura kept thinking back to Naruto and what he had done. She never would have done something as scary as that, and she wondered if she would ever be strong like that. She remembered how she was before Ino became her friend. She was so lonely all the time, no one would play with her and they all made fun of her large forehead. She tried to hide it with her hair, but it didn't work. One day while she was being bullied, Ino had come in and chased them off. That had been the best day of her life when Ino became her friend. She still wore the red ribbon on her head that Ino had given them. After that day she felt stronger and more outgoing thanks to Ino. It was odd how Naruto had come into her life the same way as Ino had. He had fought those bullies and Ino helped a bit as well. She looked at her best friend and saw how she was into her story. I want to be more like her, stronger and more sure. Like how Naruto is. Yeah, he seems nice too. Inner Sakura said to her. Ever since she could remember, Sakura had this little self of her inside of her head. She never told anyone since people would just think she was weird and ugly. But inner Sakura had always been with her, helping her through her lonely times and as a voice to talk to. She wasn't sure if it was just her mind that made her, some weird blood limit, or she suffered from multiple personalities, but inner Sakura was there to stay. Yeah, he is, but I wonder what's under that mask. I wonder if he's really cute. Inner Sakura started to draw up possible pictures of Naruto without the mask. Sakura blushed a bit at that and went back to her original line of thoughts. I need to be stronger, but how? Well, maybe we could train with Naruto? Plus, didn't Hinata say she is already training? We don't train yet and I bet they'll be way stronger than us by the time we get the academy. Sakura nodded to herself and then she focused on Ino. Hey Ino, do you train with your family? Huh? Ino was surprised by the turn of conversation. Well, no, not really. My daddy gave me a few lessons in hand-to-hand, but nothing much. Why? Well, Naruto and Hinata train, but when we get to the academy, we'll be behind them, and I want to be stronger like Naruto. He stood up for Hinata and saved her and nearly died. My dad retired and is doing administration work at the Hokage Tower now, but he could train me if I asked. Ino was starting to wonder herself. She did want to be a strong ninja one day to make her dad proud. Maybe it couldn't hurt, but she stopped and pointed. Hey look. It's Sasuke-kun. Sakura turned to look to see the handsome young Uchiha walking with his mother. Both girls giggled seeing the boy. Ino, like all girls, had a crush on the mysterious boy. He was so dark and had this lone wolf thing to him. Didn't hurt that he was cute too. Although Sakura did agree with the looks, she mainly went on with the other girls because she wanted to fit in. Shan-Naro. Hey, what if we're in a class with Sasuke and Naruto? Wouldn't that be great? Inner Sakura started to hug two little dolls that looked like chibi versions of Naruto and Sasuke. Sakura just sweat dropped and decided to ignore her inner self for the next few hours. Hokage Tower. The past couple of weeks had been almost peaceful for the Hokage. He had visited Naruto a few times since he was in out of the hospital. And by the looks of it, Kakashi was putting his son through the ringer. He knew that Kakashi was just worried about his son and wanted him to be prepared for the future. He also knew that Kakashi was blaming himself for Naruto nearly dying. Although the old man did admit he had never seen Kakashi this motivated since before he had a personality change after the deaths of his genin team. He was actually focused in his training with Naruto, and got help from unlikely sources. Guy of course wanted to give Naruto weights, although the amount he wanted to give him was insane, so Kakashi cut the original weight in half just so his son could walk. Another surprise was that Anko herself was training him a few times, although Naruto said they were more like torture sessions. He nearly laughed when he used his crystal ball to look in on when Anko wanted to make sure the boy would be able to dodge attacks in the future. So, She spent hours throwing all kinds of weapons at him, making sure his body knew how to dodge. Anko had to be pulled off the interrogation of the Cloud Ninja in the hospital as well. Although she was a special jonin that helped Ibiki out with getting information out of prisoners, she had nearly killed the man at one point. Actually, she managed to stop his heart for a full minute before starting it again. So far, they managed to get out the real purpose for his visit to their village, and to think that the Cloud Village would stoop so low. And here he was waiting for the official envoy for their prisoner as well. A messenger told him that the envoy was here, and he told him to bring them in. He sat up straight, putting on his best Hokage face. He saw 3 people walk in, a slim little girl that looked to be of jonin rank, with a tall red-haired man with spiky hair with a large cleaver on his back. The man in front wore black with gold and carried with him a short sword at his hilt. Hokage-sama, I am Kojiro Miki. I understand you have one of our ninjas here. The man even though gave him the proper respect in what he said but not how he said it. The Hokage would just let him go for now. The last thing he needed was to get into a war with Cloud. But he also wouldn't let this man walk all over to him, so he just smiled at him, although the smile never reached his eyes. Well, I'm glad that you arrived here very fast, especially since we received word that you were coming before we even sent word to you. The other 2 members of the team stiffened a bit, but he noticed the leader only nodded his head. Well, in the ninja world many things are possible. Yes, and I hope you remember that for later, smirked, seeing his slightly confused expression. But at any rate, your ninja is in a lot of trouble. He has confessed to trying to kidnap a child of the Hyuga clan, not to mention we do have a witness to this, as he was gravely wounded in stopping him. I would like to see Akira myself to ascertain that he has given this, of his own free will, Kojiro said to him, and the Hokage didn't see any reason not to. So, with a group of Umbu with them, they found themselves in the secure area of the hospital. There were a couple of guards on the door, and they let the group into the room. Kojiro looked at Akira there on the bed. He had bandages over half his face and all over his body. His limbs were in casts and he had an 4 in his arm. Kojiro turned to the Hokage, anger on his face. Is this how you interrogate a member of our village? What have you done to him? Actually, nothing much. He came in like this after the fight, Sarutobi told him honestly. Many of the injuries were from the battle, a few from Anko, but thankfully Ibiki had pulled her away from doing anything that would show. And the fact that Ibiki liked to use mental torture to get people to break down. He wasn't sure what he used, but long ago he stopped asking Ibiki those types of questions because he liked to sleep at night. Are you saying one ninja did this? Kojiro asked dangerously. No, I'm not. He couldn't wait for the punchline to this. It was actually a young boy that hasn't even entered the academy. Kojiro looked at the Hokage like he had lost his mind that a lie like that would actually work on him. He knew that Akira was no pushover. Sure, he wasn't the best, but he had been picked for this mission for his skills. The fact that a child did this was laughable, and was about to let this Hokage know what he really thought about him and his weak village when a voice called out weakly. Not a boy. Akira said weakly. Kojiro cast the Hokage a glance as he walked over to his fellow ninja and leaned down. Who did this to you, Akira, so we can have revenge for this disgrace? Akira looked at him with his single eye, and there was something that he had not seen in Akira's eye before, and that was fear. Not just fear but actual terror. It looked like a boy, but it wasn't a boy. The Leaf Village has a demon that wears the mask of a child. It wasn't human, the chakra, it was faster than I was, it was so fast. Kojiro stood up and wasn't sure what to think for the moment. It was obvious that his mind wasn't in the right place since he was speaking nonsense. He would be taken back where he could be healed, and they would be able to get to the truth of the matter. This embarrassment would be remembered by the Cloud, and as soon as they found something to blame, then they would claim the right of revenge on that person. He only hoped that they could place it on the Hyuga clan, since it was taking one of them that caused this. Everyone knew that the Hokage was weak and strived for peaceful relations. Such a nature was looked as foolish among the Cloud Ninja. In their village you used your strength to overpower your enemies and bend them to your will. The Hokage would not risk war and would do anything to protect his people from it. The last great ninja war must have taken its toll on the man that was known as the Professor, to turn someone of his skills in battle to seek peaceful alternatives. You will make arrangements for Akira to be moved, and we will take him with us. He is one of ours, and for this he will be dealt with by our own people. The Hokage would have laughed at his face, then he knew that Akira would most likely get a slap on the wrist for just failing. But he knew that if he protested it would only lead to much trouble. Fine, but let me tell you something, if he ever appears in the country of fire again, he will be killed on sight no matter what. Even if he is delivering a diplomatic message, he will not be spared, and he will go into our bingo books with that kill on sight order. He is no longer welcomed in this country or this village. The Hokage stared into the young man's eyes with hardened eyes of a veteran and of a man that was more powerful than the young man could ever hope to become. Kojiro nodded his head to that. The old man knew how to play the game. He had removed an enemy without actually killing him and yet gave them what they wanted. Although he was sure that they came out the victor in this little game that was politics, since as soon as Akira confirmed the identity of the one that got in the way of the plans to take a blood limit for their own, they would deal with that person. After all, the word of one man or woman against Akira could be contested, and they were certain that the Hokage would send to them that person out as a sacrificial lamb if it saved the village. But the thought of a child doing this was impossible. There was no way any Konoha child was that strong. After all, the Leaf Village were known lack the bloodlust or real warriors, unlike them or say the Rock Village. What he didn't know was that Sarutobi knew that Akira would never change his story and that the Cloud would never believe the story of a demon child, so he knew that Naruto was safe at least for now. He made plans to get rid of him, although he knew that the Hyuga clan would have liked to have had him killed for this crime. This was the best solution. If this ninja ever entered his lands again, he would be killed, so the Hyuga's honor would be satisfied. As he watched them take the man away, he only hoped that the Cloud would be too busy and frustrated with Akira's answers to let the matter drop. Although he could expect more Cloud spies in his territory and maybe his own village for the next few months as they tried to get more information, which meant Umbu would be busy for a bit as well. Sometimes I wish you were still here, Minato. They wouldn't have dared to try something like this if you were still alive. The old man decided to go for a walk today. He needed to clear his head and to find some way to distress after this kind of day. A nice walk in the park would help, and if luck would have it, he would see Naruto playing with his new friends as well. Now, for the first time all day, he had a real smile on his face. If there was one thing Naruto was good for besides making life less boring, was to cheer people up. Chapter 12, Path to Darkness. Itachi had been on a week-long mission with his group to hunt down a group of ninjas that had been in the country of fire for a while now. The Lord was getting nervous and was getting complaints on attacks by a few ninjas in black cloaks with red clouds. They had found one of them, but the strength of these ninjas had been understated. He had already lost one member of his Umbu team already as they started to chase this ninja. He was fast, nearly as fast as he was, and he had on a forehead protector that had a slash over it. From the symbol it looked like he was an ex-ninja from Rock, which made sense with the Earth-style attacks that they had come up against. Suddenly the ground shot up at them and Itachi managed to dodge, but Raven was caught as giant and sharp rocks the size of trees came out of the ground and crushed the elite ninja. That only left him and Crane, and by the way Crane was moving he could read his body and tell he was rattled. He was about to bark at him to get his mind focused when they had to dodge what looked like a giant shuriken. Itachi activated his Sharingan as the enemy came into view. He started to make hand seals and he matched it, taking the jutsu for himself. At the same time, they both cried out, "Earth release, stone pillars." Giant stone pillars shot out of the ground all over the place, some of them colliding together trying to smash the other ninja between them. His partner came up behind the cloaked ninja with a sword and slashed into the ninja. Itachi watched as the ninja's body turned into earth as he released it was an earth clone. He was going to warn his comrade when a stone blade pierced his chest. The Umbu looked down almost like he was confused, but when it was pulled out the body fell to the ground and died very quickly from the fatal wound. Itachi saw the ninja with some type of earth-like armor on his arms and legs. One of the arms were bladed as well. It was too bad he hadn't seen the ninja use that technique. He would have liked to have added that to his growing list of abilities. Itachi fired off Kunao with steel lines attacked trying to immobilize him. He was satisfied when he saw most of the wires holding him in place. Fire release, fire dragon missile. Itachi roared out as a giant flaming dragon smashed into the ninja. With those wires there holding him, there was no way for him to use a replacement technique. The wires were specially designed to disrupt that. But there was a drawback to using the technique he had, and that was for a small moment you lost sight of the person you were trying to incinerate. In that moment the ninja had somehow called more earth together and had a shell covering himself. Itachi was getting slightly frustrated, but he kept himself calm and detached as usual. In battle he found that thinking logically and keeping yourself detached from emotions helped to keep you totally focused. He didn't think about the people he lost, or how strong this opponent was. He was only thinking of winning, and how to win. He was about to hit the dome with enough fire to superheat it, but thankfully he kept his guard up. He jumped back as the ninja burst out of the ground. Itaka was grazed on the chest, but nothing much more difficult. "I have to admit you're better than the others," the black-clad ninja smirked. Itaka didn't bother to replay with words but with actions. He started to cast an illusion around the ninja. He wasn't the best, but he knew a few good ones that would let him get in a good shot. While the ninja was busy trying to get out of the illusion, Itaka jumped up and pulled his sword out, attacking from above. But the enemy ninja moved just getting out of the illusion and his blade sliced into him, but it wasn't fatal. Itaka then received a blow to his face, shattering his mask as he flew into a tree. He moved as soon as he could, knowing of a follow-up, but a kunai hit his arm. He winced but kept on fighting the enemy ninja. They continued to fight on, never stopping to give the other a break, but it was a tough opponent. Itaka began looking for an opening, any opening. He used a landslide technique that caused the ground under the ninja to become unstable. It was then that Itaka threw a few smoke bombs and several kunai with explosive tags into the smoke, making large explosions. The enemy ninja jumped out singed but still alive. He began looking for the other ninja and felt movement to his left. He grinned and dodged the sword and gripped the ninja by the throat. Time to end this little ninja. Itaka gave only look with his eyes that seemed to say to him that he knew something. Yes, I agree with that. Then there was a sharp pain in the ninja as a blade was shoved through his chest from his back and into Itaka. Only a split second later Itaka became a puff of smoke as the shadow clone vanished. The ninja managed to look behind him, seeing the real Itaka there. "Damn, got me with my own move." Itaka let the ninja fall dead just like he had with his partner. That the ninja had was then that he suddenly felt a presence behind him and turned, but was hit in the stomach, then in the face in a blow that was harder than he could remember ever being hit before. Itaka coughed up blood, feeling a loose tooth somewhere in the back of his mouth. The taste of iron from his blood was in his mouth as he looked up at the newcomer. The last one had been difficult, but this man, he was on a whole other level. He was superior in every way to the man he just beat, but he was tired and this man was fresh. There was also something strange as well. The man's eyes, they looked like the eyes of some kind of bloodline like his own or the Hyaga's. A few black circular lines in pale eyes. He couldn't remember ever hearing about such a thing before. "So, you are the mighty Itaka. I've heard of your skill, and I must say to take down one of my men means that you are indeed strong. But you are not stronger than I am, and yet I see you want to fight on. Why do you fight, Itaka?" "Why not?" Itaka said, getting to his feet. "I am Itaka Uchiha and I am the strongest in my clan. I have no equal and I will not lose to someone else," Itaka said calmly as he started to gather more chakra. "The strongest? Then you have no one to push you beyond your limits," the man said, and Itaka paused for a moment as the man said something that he had known for years about himself. "Yes, I know you very well, or the type that you are. You strive to be the perfect ninja, the best that there has ever been, but for what purpose? Even if you become the strongest with no purpose, there is no meaning to it all. But you've gotten me interested in you, so here is what I'll offer you. I can offer you skills and abilities that no one would know about. I can show you things that will make you the true equal to no one. Also, I will give you a purpose. I doubt you want to serve for your life. Sure, you most likely will lead a clan, but what is a clan to the entire world?" Now Itaka was thinking carefully as he was getting ready. The man obviously was either insane or very ambitious. No one could take over all of the known nations. It was impossible to do that. You would need true power, power that even he had to admit that he did not have. He didn't think he knew of any power that could allow anyone to conquer the world. But for the first time in a very long time, something in him was sparked. The idea of showing the world his power, and to have true power in the world, to be able to shape it to his whim. He was actually surprised that a part of him actually liked the idea. "I can even give you something to show you my good faith," the stranger said to him. "Tell me, what do you know of the Mangekyo Sharinan?" Itaka's eyes widened at that. No one from outside of the village was supposed to know of that. Even most in his own village and clan didn't know the name. How could you know of that?" "I know many things, Itaka, and I know even how you can gain a Mangekyo Sharinan." "That's impossible. No one knows how. That was lost in the histories, and everyone who has tried has failed." There have only been a few to gain that power, but it was never recorded how it was done. Now Itachi was thinking back to all the studies on his bloodline. There were references to the Mangekyo and a few of the abilities, but they never stated how. It was like the information was erased long ago for some unknown reason. Oh, but I do know Itachi, and there is a reason why no one speaks of it anymore. The way to gain that ability is through a sacrifice, but not just any sacrifice. You must kill your best friend. With killing that bond in your life you will access your full potential. Itachi in all his life would have guessed that to gain the ultimate power of his clan he would have to do something so simple. It was simple, and yet he could see why no one had tried it. It would make sense why no one would talk about it or remember it, and why only a handful had gained it. Most likely they gained that power by accident, and with all his training and with the knowledge that this man had known, he knew that it had to be the truth. There was no lie in his voice, and Itachi had to ask him more. Why are you telling me this? I offer you a choice, Itachi. You can join me in my group. You have no real future in your village, and your skills and talents are wasted there. I offer you to be part of the future. I plan on ruling this world, and I know of how to do this. There are powers hidden all over the world, great demons that had been sealed away. I plan on taking their power and using it as the ultimate power. Nothing will stand in my way. And as I've said, you've interested me, so go back home and choose. If you want the power, kill your friend. If you do, you know your life there is over with, and as proof of your commitment to me you must show me that there is nothing to hold to your old life. You must destroy your old life as proof that you seek the future. The man turned and started to walk away, but then he stopped. Think on it, Itachi, because if you do not accept, the next time we meet you will die. Then he was suddenly gone, and Itachi was left with his dead comrades and left to think on his own future. Konoha. Sasuke was having a good day. He had nearly killed himself trying to get that one jutsu that he saw his brother use, and after days he finally got it down. In fact, even his father seemed pleased, at least that's what he thought, but something was still wrong. For some reason he said not to follow in his brother's path, which confused him. Wasn't his brother the strongest in the clan? It made no sense, but he had seen how even though his father up to that point had ignored him all his life, he wasn't any closer to his older brother. In fact, it looked like he was close to their father than his older brother, which was strange. Things had been very odd around the compound too. It all started a few days ago when one of them seemed to have committed suicide, something nearly unheard of in their clan. He had drowned himself apparently, as a note with his handwriting was found in his room, but his father's reaction was not what he expected. Instead of being angry with a member of the clan for showing such weakness or even consoling the family as was his obligation as clan head, he seemed to be deep in thought about something. Well, for Sasuke, he didn't understand any of this, but he was too happy with his father finally acknowledging him to really care. For the first time in his life his father would train him personally, and to finally get his father's approval after all this time and effort, well, it just felt really good to him. Across the village there was another son undergoing training, but this was under his father's gaze. Naruto was finally doing chakra control exercises, or at least trying to. He had this stupid leaf on his hand and he had to make it float, but too little chakra and it wouldn't do anything, too much and it would burn. And by the huge pile of burnt leaves he had a real problem with not burning them. Kakashi was sitting on the deck reading one of these perverted books. Although he looked to be reading, he was actually thinking. Naruto was having a lot of trouble with such a simple thing. Anyone else would have gotten this long ago, but they had nearly a quarter of the leaves off one small tree gone now. It sent him thinking on why this was so hard for his son. One answer was that Naruto had no skills with chakra, but given who his biological father and mother was, that made no sense. Two other reasons were that because Naruto had such a huge amount of chakra, it was a lot harder for him to mold. Kids his age didn't have that much. Hell, there were low-grade chunins that didn't have that much chakra. Another reason he figured was because of the fox's chakra. Kakashi wasn't sure exactly how it worked with Naruto's chakra system, but it wasn't normal chakra, it was far more powerful and potent. If some of it was mixing in with his, that also could explain a few things. It could even be because of those two factors, which meant that he would have to really work on Naruto's chakra control. He sighed as his son burnt another leaf and started to yell at it and lose his temper. It was a long road for his son, but there was a bright side to things. Naruto never gave up and he worked hard, maybe harder than anyone. He wouldn't stop until he got something right, even to the point he just dropped from exhaustion. Also, the fact that with his little training, some of guy with taijutsu, and whatever Enko did that didn't kill him, the thought of what Naruto could be when he grew up made him a little giddy. His son had so much potential, now he just needed to know what to teach him. He could easily help him with the academy stuff, but he wanted his son to have an edge. There were so many techniques to teach him, but when he was ready there were two that he wasn't sure which to teach him. His own technique, the Chidori, or the technique of his father, the Raise-Non. In a way he felt that because Naruto was his adopted son, he should get his own and only original technique, but he was sure that Minato would want his son to have the Raise-Non. He had been taught the Raise-Non, but he had only actually used it 3 times in actual combat. It was just too insane for him to make and use. Each time his hand felt like it nearly drained him. The amount of chakra you needed for it was a very large amount. He remembered the first time he actually made a perfect one, that had landed him in the hospital for chakra exhaustion. It was pretty much something he saved if there was no other way. Sure, now he had a lot more chakra than most, as he had one of the largest among the Jonins, but he still wasn't anywhere near his old sensei had. Even now he could make one without using up all his chakra, but he would be very weak after it and wouldn't be able to make another. That was why he stuck with his own technique. It wasn't as powerful as the Raise-Non, but it sure got the job done, and he could use that a few times in one day as well. There was only one other person who could teach Naruto the Raise-Non anyways, but he hadn't been around for years. It was too bad, since Kakashi had a bunch of books he would love to get autographed. He only had bought the limited edition of the first series with his autograph. Cost him a whole month of savings, but it was worth it. Naruto started to throw another burnt leaf down, and Kakashi starting to try and think of other exercises that would help Naruto. Later that night, as the sun fell, Fugaku was walking along the clan compound trying to puzzle out the small mystery before him. Shisui's death bothered him, mainly because he knew that young man and he was anything but suicidal. But there was another thing bothering him. Shisui had been reporting on his son Itaki and what his son had been doing. His son seemed to be acting odd after his return from that mission where he had been the only survivor. The fact that the boy had suddenly died made him think that Itaki might be linked to it. He honestly didn't know what was going on with his son, but lately Itaki had been in the family library before the boy's death researching something. His oldest son hadn't been seen after the Shisui had been found, and already he had recalled the family members. If his oldest son had been responsible, then he would need forces to take him down. His son held so much promise, and he wondered where he had gone wrong with him. He could have led the clan to greatness, but it looked like he would become their great shame. On the other hand, Sasuke had surprised him with his ability with the jutsu that he had mastered. Maybe he shouldn't have neglected his youngest son because he didn't develop as fast as his older brother, but he had seen the promise in Sasuke's abilities. He would help train his youngest son and he would lead the clan, and maybe it was for the best. He had never been that close with his sons, but at least with Sasuke he would understand him. Now was the only matter was Itaki to deal with. He walked through the dark home, but suddenly something seemed odd. There was a stillness to the night, like death was in the air. He slowly turned his head to the window and looked out into the night. He looked at the moon and noticed a slight red tint to it all, a blood moon. It was a bad omen to be sure, and with the night like this his instincts were screaming at him. He noticed something else as well. There usually were roaming patrols on the grounds, but he didn't see any of them. Now he was certain something was wrong and quickly ran through the mansion, wondering when he never came upon another soul or how quiet things were. He opened up the door to Kai Uchiha, who was in charge of the guards. He stopped in his tracks at the sight. There in the center room was Kai, his wife, and their 2 children, all dead. It looked like the mother tried to cover the children with her body but had failed anyway. No one had ever managed to get this deep inside of the Uchiha home and commit a murder such as this. The person that could only do something like this, he knew, would have to be extraordinarily trained and would have to know the compound very well. Then the answer hit him and he ran to check on the rest of his own family. He came into the common room and was met by a sight that broke through his nearly emotionless mask. There was Itaki in his umbu uniform with a bloody katana. On the floor was his wife. His heart seemed to be like stone at the sight of his wife's unmoving body. As clan head he had to be totally in control and keep his emotions, but this sight broke through all his control. He might not have said it much or often, but he loved his wife, and seeing her dead at the hands of their own son was heartbreaking. He took a few steps looking at her pale face and then looked at his son, but when he saw his son's eyes, he was surprised to see the Sharingan was different. It took a moment to process, but there was only one thing that it could be. His son had found a way to activate the last level of the Sharingan, something only a handful had been able to do but had been lost for several generations. But he didn't care about that. He stood to face his son, setting his face in stone. Why? Anything in particular, father? Itachi asked in the same manner. He didn't say anything, only glaring at the young man. You could have become clan head, even maybe be Hokage one day. Why throw it all away and why turn on your clan and family? Itachi looked at him for a moment. Why would I settle for this village when there is a world out there to rule? And this village is only holding me back. I have found a new path for getting stronger. I thought that I was strong, but there are others out there stronger than I am. I would never gain that kind of power like the power I have now. This village means nothing to me now, and I have to move forward, and to do that, I have to cut all ties I have to this village. He clenched his fists at his son's words as he glared at the boy and activated his own Sharingan. Elsewhere in the mansion, Sasuke was running. He couldn't find anyone and he knew something was wrong. He ran through the halls looking for his mother and father, wondering why the compound seemed to be deserted. He ran to the common room that his family used and opened to the door just in time to see his father being impaled by a katana. He froze there in shock as he watched his father die in front of him. Then he noticed his mother on the floor, and when the face of their killer came into view as his father's body hit the floor, it was like someone had shattered his world. Brother. He stepped forward on shaking legs, looking at their deaths, and felt the sting in his eyes from tears. Then he looked to his older brother. Why? Why did you do this? Why? Itachi walked over to his little brother with no emotion on his face, almost looking like he was studying him. Because they were all weak and deserved it. Sasuke tried to punch him, but his fist was easily caught by Itachi. You're weak too, Sasuke, and let me show you a new power of mine. Tsukuyomi. In that small moment, Sasuke lived through 3 days of hell as he watched his family die over and over again in his mind. When it was over, he looked at his older brother. You're not worthy for me to kill. If you want to kill me, you must hate me with all your being. To grow strong, you must live to hate Sasuke. With that final statement, Sasuke blacked out from the mental stress that he had gone through. Itachi watched him fall and figured that those words were the best to get his little brother on the right path. He wanted to give his little brother enough motivation to become truly strong like he had become. One day he would see if his little brother had what it took to fight him, and he would see which way of the ninja was best. But now it was time to go. He had to finish off any survivors before someone became aware of the deaths. As the dawn came to the village, Itachi was a long way away from the village that had once been his home at that moment. He had left the village and not once did he look back. He had made his choice and he knew he had made the right one. He now had the legendary power of his clan, and the power it gave him was unbelievable, and he was now on his way to only get more. He returned to the area where he had defeated the strange ninja, waiting for the other one to show up. He didn't have to wait long as the one he had met before had arrived. I see that you have decided to join us. I must admit, killing your clan was very impressive. They were weak and they would have hunted me down. They would have made things very difficult. Besides, this way none of them would try and get the power that I have, although what he didn't say was that he left his brother alive not for any sentimental reasons, but because Sasuke was the only one he felt was worthy to live on, and to live in with hate burning him up inside. He would see if he could push his little brother to be as powerful as he was, to see which way of the ninja was the stronger. Being emotionally detached or using your emotions. Then you'll need these. Then Itachi, the figure, threw a cloak down that Itachi put on, and then he noticed that the man had an open hand towards him with a ring on it. This belonged to the one you defeated. It's only fitting that you take his place. You still haven't told me much about this group of yours, Itachi said, putting on the rind. It's called Akatsuki and you can call me Pain. The man said to him, leading him towards his future. Chapter 13, First Day of School. Naruto was in his room looking up at his ceiling waiting for his alarm to go off. He had barely gotten any sleep last night. He had been training for a year and today was the day. It was the day he started his first day at the academy. He couldn't wait. He was so excited about things, and the last year had gone on real fast it seemed. He remembered the day Hinata's baby sister had been born, and she was kind of cute for a baby. He trained with Hinata and even Niji when Niji had the time, which was nice, although he was already in the academy now, a year ahead of them and doing very well. Naruto also enjoyed his time with his new friends Ino, Koji, and Shikamaru, but over the year something happened with him and Sakura. He started to really like her lately. Okay, so he also thought she was really nice looking and way smarter than he was. In the year he had known her, she had gained more confidence and trained with Ino. The two had started to form a strange friendship/rivalry between the two of them. He remembered 6 months ago he had been walking down a street with Sakura walking her home. It was on his way anyway and they had finished playing together that day. Hinata had been busy with her baby sister and the others had various other things to do. It had been going well until a couple of kids got in their faces, just a couple of bullies, a few boys and a couple of girls. Naruto, although angry, could take it, but then they started to tease Sakura about her forehead, making her cry a bit. That's when Naruto threw the first punch. He wished he could say that he fought and won, but ended up with a beating. At least he gave a few of them bloody noses. So there he was, just sitting up against a wall with Sakura trying to wipe some of the blood from a small cut, looking really worried about him. You didn't have to do that, you know I don't like seeing my friends hurt, Naruto. He shrugged. Yeah, well, no one makes fun of my friends, besides it made you sad and I don't like seeing you sad. Sakura gave a small smile at that. It felt good to have someone care for her, and Naruto was always so nice to her. Sure, he usually got into trouble and was a bit loud at times, but he made things fun and he always stood up for her and for the others too. She remembered just last week when someone called Koji fat and he stood up for him. Naruto was very protective of his friends and no matter what the odds were he always fought his hardest for them. He never gave up and it was one of the reasons she had asked for some training from her father and even a little with Ino. She dabbed a bit at the small cut on his eyebrow, but thankfully it had stopped bleeding. Although she and Naruto never noticed just how fast he always healed, they just figured it always healed fast. She put away the small cloth she had on her and looked at him. There were a few flakes of drying blood but not much, and he was looking at her with those blue eyes of his. She had to admit she had never seen anyone with eyes like his. They were just this unique shade of blue, and after a year she still hadn't seen behind the mask. She wondered what he was hiding. Was he ugly or did he have a scare or something? Thank you, Naruto-kun. Although I wish I didn't have this ugly forehead, I get teased so much because of it that I just want to hide it. Sakura looked down, not wanting to see into his eyes. She remembered how Ino told her how it wasn't ugly, but she was still sensitive about it. Naruto looked at her for a moment before speaking softly, which was rare for him and only when he truly meant something. I don't think it's ugly, Sakura-chan, I like it. I think it's cute. He honestly wasn't sure what to say about it, but he had heard that word used before by older people when they were talking to others and people seemed to like it. Sakura blushed a bit, smiling. Thank you, Naruto-kun, but come on, let's get you to my place so we can clean you up. Okay. Naruto jumped up full of energy and hyperactive again. You think your mom made those cookies again? They're great. Naruto liked the parents of his friends since they always treated him well. Especially Ino, Koji, and Shikamaru's dads. For some reason, Sakura's mother and father seemed a little unsure about him at first, but after some time they seemed to warm up to him. It also meant that when his dad was away on a mission for some time he could sleep over at his friend's place. Koji's family always had a lot of food. Shikamaru's family was okay. His dad was pretty lazy and his mother kind of scared him at times, but they lived by this large forest with all these deer. He only been with Ino's a few times, but he liked it, and he liked learning about plants and stuff too. He had kind of started a small spot for flowers in his backyard. Although his dad had been worried about him for some reason, but he just told him that it was relaxing for him. Naruto thought back over the year and had to admit it was a pretty great year. And now they would all be in the academy together and he couldn't wait for it. He wondered if he would find any new friends or not in school. He looked over at his alarm clock and scowled at it. Stupid alarm, ring already so I can go. When it finally went off, it only rang once before his hand shot out and stopped it. He jumped out of bed and went to get a shower and then change. He made it into the kitchen before his dad woke up and he sat at the table waiting for him. But after 30 seconds he jumped off the chair and pushed it to the counter as he tried to make his own breakfast. It wasn't too hard since he knew how to cook some meals for himself or for his dad, since his dad taught him some things like how to cook. He said it was an important skill to learn to be independent and something about how it's showing how much a woman means to you if you cook her a breakfast in bed. Personally, Naruto didn't get that last reference at all. By the time Kakashi had gotten out of bed he saw already a small mess of the kitchen. Thankfully Naruto was improving. That first time he tried to make something on his own had been a disaster. I take it someone is eager for their first day? He asked, seeing Naruto excited and nearly bouncing off the walls. Of course, Dad. This is going to be great. I'm going to learn to be a ninja with my friends, make more friends and learn all kinds of cool stuff, Naruto went on and on to his father's amusement. It had been something that Naruto had been looking forward to for over a year now. So are you going there on your own? You know the way, right? Kakashi asked, although he knew for certain that Naruto knew the way by heart, but he liked seeing Naruto this excited. Naruto put on that face when he was thinking, although for him it looked like he was struggling with the meaning of life when he did it, then he suddenly seemed to get an idea. Actually, Dad, I think I'll go and see someone before I get there. Well, you better get going or you might be late, Kakashi said, pointed to the clock. Naruto's eyes widened and quickly pulled on his mask and ran to the front door, leaving Kakashi to chuckle as he went to put on a morning cup of coffee for himself. Over at the Hyuga compound, the young Hinata was a bit worried. After all, it was her first day and she felt a little worried that no one would like her. Thankfully she had all her friends going there, so she would at least not be lonely, although there was one other thing bothering her lately. Naruto seemed to be getting close to Sakura and it made her feel strange things. She felt sad because the attention he showed Sakura, she found herself wanting him to show it to her. But he wasn't cutting her out of his life. He always came to play with her and to have fun and even to train a bit. And she felt a bit closer to her cousin now too, since joining him in training now and then, and she had to admit he was much stronger than she was. She still nearly giggled at all the times Naruto kept getting her father and uncle confused. Sometimes she wondered if he did it on purpose because of the annoyed looks her father and uncle got at times. But she still felt weak. She was always nervous around people and she could never really harm anyone in her sparring matches. But then every time she doubted herself, Naruto would always encourage her and she found the strength to push on. She wanted to be strong like he was. He never seemed to be afraid and always fought his hardest no matter what. He had saved her from that kidnapping. The night was a bit hazy, but she still had nightmares about that. But Naruto had saved her, and he had nearly died in the process. She could still remember seeing him covered in blood. Hinata, are you okay? Hinata was brought out of her thoughts as she was sitting on her bed in her room and looked up to see her mother there by her doorway. She smiled kindly at her as she walked in and stroked her hair gently. Nervous, dear? Hana asked, and Hinata nodded her head. Are you sure you want to be a ninja then? Hinata had been thinking about it, but she knew the answer to that. Why, yes, I do. I want to show that I am strong, mother. That I can show that I'm not weak. And she looked down as she fidgeted with her fingers in her nervous habit. Her mother wasn't fooled though. She had seen how Hinata was around Naruto and she had to smile. She knew that her daughter was starting to like the Hatake boy, and who could blame her? Not every day that someone rescues you. Although she was a bit sad, if she grew up and fell in love with the boy, he would need to seriously prove himself for Hinata to marry outside of the clan, let alone be courted by someone outside of the clan. Not many of their people did, but there were a few, because in the past when some would run away to live with the person they fell in love with, or events that had led to bloodshed and other unpleasant things, a set of rules were set up. The person that a Hyuga could see outside of the clan would have to come from a distinguished background, shown very high level of skills and strength. Plus, the clan head and elders had to agree. A part of her hoped that her daughter found someone else to avoid heartache, but another part of her wanted her daughter to be happy. Thankfully her father hadn't given in the elders about an arranged marriage to their daughters, since he wanted at least some free will for them. Plus, that was the reason they had been married. If he had been arranged, then he would have had to marry most likely someone else, and Hana loved her husband. Well then, let's get you ready then, Hinata, or else we will be late, she told her daughter, helping her to get ready. They arrived at the main gates and she felt another headache hit her eyes with the bright sun. She tried not to show it, but lately she had been getting migraines lately. In bright lights it could get very bad, but she just put it off as stress. After all, she had a new baby daughter that was a handful. They came to the gates as she nodded her head to the guards, who bowed theirs in respect. They weren't 10 feet from the gate when a loud and a very excited voice yelled out to them. Hinata-chan! Wait up! Naruto came running up to them and stopped just short. Naruto, shouldn't you be on your way to school? Hana asked. I wanted to walk there with Hinata-chan on our first day, Naruto smiled up at her. Well then, Hinata, I don't see why Naruto-kun here can't walk you there, She smiled, seeing her daughter's cheek get slightly red as she looked down and poking her fingertips together again. But she did catch the small smile on Hinata's face. "Yeah, you heard your mom, let's go." "I don't want to be late." Naruto quickly grabbed Hinata's hand, which of course made her blush even harder as he ran to the school with her. Hana watched the children run off together. She turned back and started to walk back towards the gates when she suddenly felt very dizzy and stumbled. "Hana-sama, are you okay?" One of the guards ran over to her, but she got up and waved him off. "I'm fine, just tired," she told them, going back into the mansion. Maybe taking a nap would help her out. Later, Naruto was looking at the school with excitement in his eyes. Hinata was standing next to him looking up at the building. Although she was nervous, she was glad that Naruto had came to get her. She always felt better when he was around. Naruto looked at her with that hidden smile of his. "Come on, let's see if we can find our class and the others." They searched through the academy and found the room on the first floor. There was a sign on the wall that told them that the New Year's class would be inside, and Naruto just walked right in, and when he saw who the teacher was, Naruto's day got even better. "Iruka. You're our teacher." Iruka smiled, looking at the young boy and the shy girl in his shadow. "Yes, Naruto, I am. I'll be your teacher, and I want you to call me Iruka-sensei now, okay?" "Sure thing, Iruka-sensei," Naruto said happily. He was glad that he was getting him as this group's teacher. He knew that some classes would have a teacher throughout the time at the academy, with maybe different support teachers. Sometimes students got a different teacher now and then if they were held back a year or something. Ninja schooling didn't work like the ones the civilian kids did, since as they were preparing for the lives as ninjas they needed a special type of schooling. Naruto walked up to an empty spot. He saw Ino and Sakura sitting together and waved to them as they waved back. He nodded to Koji, who was eating a bag of chips, with Shikamaru already sleeping at his desk. He sat down with Hinata on his left, and to his right he saw a boy with short dark hair looking a bit darkly at the front. Naruto wasn't sure who he was, but he seemed familiar. Then it hit him. "Hey, you're that boy I've seen sitting around alone. How come whenever I say hi you just ignore me?" The boy just sat there quickly as if he hadn't heard Naruto's voice. This of course was starting to tick Naruto off a bit, since being ignored wasn't something he liked. "Well, I'm Naruto and this is my best friend Hinata, so what's your name?" Again silence. "Hey you jerk, when people are being nice to you, you should at least be polite and respond." Now the boy looked at Naruto sideways. "I don't care." Now Naruto was really getting pissed off that the boy, "Oh yeah? Then what makes you so special, huh?" "Just my luck, my first day and already we're sitting next to the class jerk." Naruto, maybe we should just leave him alone," Hinata said in her usual soft voice. "Yeah, alright, fine, but the least you could do is at least give your name," Naruto said, glaring at the boy. He only looked at him for a bit and grunted before giving out his name, "Sasuke Uchiha." Hinata's eyes widened at the name. She heard of the boy but had never really seen him before. She knew of the clan, which no longer existed since a year ago, and she looked at the boy. She couldn't imagine what it was like for him. She wondered what she would go through if her entire clan had been wiped out and she was all alone. She felt bad for him, but she wasn't sure what to say to something like that. She wanted to say something, but she saw that he just wanted to be left alone and would let him. Others that they knew came in and they said hi to each other while Sakura and Ino battled for the chairs behind Sasuke, although it wasn't until Shikamaru pointed out that there were 2 empty spots anyways before the girls settled down, with Ino right behind Sasuke and Sakura right behind Naruto. The classes started that day and Naruto was given textbooks and papers as well as other things for the school semester. Naruto had to admit school wasn't as exciting as he hoped. He liked Iruka and all, but some of the lessons were kind of boring. The history was okay, at least he went into the past's Hokage, so he wanted to know about the men he wanted to surpass. He also learned a bit about what made a Hokage, so that was usual for him. Some of the stuff was boring because he already knew some of it, like the chakra stuff. His dad already told him about that and the different kinds. Okay, so he didn't remember it all, but he knew the basics and enough to allow him to mold his chakra at least. Then they went outside so Iruka could get a basic handle on any skills they might have. He stood in front of a target with a table or kunao and shurikens. They were blunted to the kids wouldn't hurt themselves, but the points would embed into the board that had several rings. The point trying to hit the center ring, of course, so the kids lined up and started to throw. Naruto watched as everyone tried out. Some of the kids weren't too bad, some were actually kind of terrible. Obviously they never trained with the weapons before now. One kid actually missed the board once and hit a tree. He was glad to see that his friends were doing well. Hinata seemed to have the best accuracy out of the girls, and there was one other boy that seemed to be doing well also. Some kid with red triangles on his face that when he did well had a huge grin showing off some wickedly sharp canines. Naruto thought he was named Kiba or something, then it was Sasuke's turn and the boy nearly hit dead center with all the throws. Everyone was amazed at that and he heard a few squeals from the girls. Well done Sasuke, so far you seem to be at the top so far, Iruka said with a smile and looked at his clipboard as he marked the score and saw who was next. Naruto, hey, take you're up next. Alright, time to show them what I can do, Naruto said grinning under his mask, picking up his kunai. The other kids were watching as well as the kid with the mask went up. There were some whispers about who the kid was and why he was wearing a mask all the time. Does anyone know that kid? A boy asked. I'm not sure, but I have to wonder if he's any good, one of the girls said. Another girl watched tilting her head, well, I don't think he'll do as well as Sasuke-kun, but makes me wonder about the mask. It's family tradition, Sakura said to everyone who was now looking at her and the circle of friends. His dad wears one all the time and the only one that's actually seen his face if Hinata here, but she never says what he looks like. Hinata blushed as everyone looked at her, sorry but he made me promise not to tell. Still he can't be that good, he's kind of a runt anyway, Kiba smirked as he walked up to them. Yeah, well, that runt took on a ninja and beat him over a year ago and nearly died as he saved Hinata here from being kidnapped, Sakura snapped at him and now everyone was looking at them, even Sasuke heard that and cast a glance to them. He looked at Naruto who was starting his own throws as he studied the boy. Yeah right, Kiba couldn't believe that a kid like that not even trained could take out a ninja. Hey shut up, Ino growled out, we saw him in the hospital with the bloody bandages on his chest where a kunai had hit him. He's lucky to be alive and for your information Hinata's father here, the head of the Hyuga clan, even said so shut up about it and take a bath, you smell like a dog. Ino didn't like other people mocking her friends and even for a kid she had a sharp tongue on her, although she only thought that Hinata's father had said something like that since she had overheard her father talking about it over dinner once. Wow, look at that! A kid yelled out and everyone looked to see that Naruto had done about as well as Sasuke. Naruto looked proudly at his score. He wasn't sure how well he did, although by the looks of it Sasuke only just beat him by a few points. He was disappointed that he didn't win, but that just meant he had to train harder now. Sasuke looked at the kid harder now. He needed to be stronger and he couldn't have any equal, he had to kill him to avenge his clan, but this kid was nearly as good at him, at least in this field. But he would keep his eye on him just in case. If the kid proved to be his equal or even stronger, then he would beat him. He had to, because his brother was stronger than anyone else in his village, so he had to be stronger than anyone in this village too, or he wouldn't stand a chance. As the day went on, Naruto while in class looked to be bored or not always paying attention. While they were doing the physical training he started to compete with the Uchiha child. Whenever those two did, everyone wanted to see who would come out on top. Although Sasuke beat Naruto most of the time, it sometimes was by a slim or small margin. Everyone else was trying to just keep up with them, and by now everyone was talking about the two kids. Naruto was a bit disappointed when in the basic taijutsu class he wasn't paired up with Sasuke. He wanted to see where he was in skills with the kid, but instead he got paired up with the loud kid Kiba. Kiba was stronger than him, but Naruto still managed to keep making him hit the ground every time thanks to all that training Naruto got from his dad, and his aunt and uncle as well. He was pleased to see that Hinata seemed to excel out of the girls thanks to her gentle fist-style training. By lunch Naruto and his friends were sitting together outside with the snack packages there for the students. Man, school is a lot different than I would have thought, Naruto said eating his food, and to the annoyance of everyone else whenever they averted their eyes somehow his food was always gone in a blink of an eye. I thought it would be more fun and stuff. Well, I'm having a good time, Sakura stated eating a sandwich. I mean, we're learning lots of things and knowledge is important to have. Who cares, I just wish that we could take classes outside, Shikamaru said laying on the ground looking up at the sky while eating an apple. You'd just go to sleep again like in class, Ino said rolling her eyes. Naruto laughed at that and Ino went to look at the other blonde. I wouldn't laugh, Iruka-sensei caught you nodding off twice. I didn't get any sleep last night, I was too excited. He said in his own defense although that was true he just didn't want to admit that Iruka could be a bit on the boring side at times and things like math and science wasn't really his strong point. Plus, he didn't get how Iruka said it would help with his life as a ninja, so maybe he would ask his dad at least later. While they talked on, Naruto noticed one kid who was off on the side. He wore a coat with dark glasses and had the bottom of his coat covering his face with messy brown hair on top. Naruto watched as the kid was eating by himself, but he seemed to break off some small pieces of his food and place it on the ground. Naruto was wondering why when he saw small black bugs come out from his sleeve and go to the food. Naruto was wondering why the kid had bugs in his coat, although they seemed to be doing what he said too. Naruto just shrugged it off as someone asked him a question. The rest of the day went by pretty well, at least, although Naruto learned one aspect of school that he would hate until the last day of his life in school. The most dreaded word that would go into his list of words that he hated, and that word was homework. Naruto sighed as he walked home with his new books and stuff, all the while muttering to himself about how he spent all day learning stuff and doing work and now he had to take work home with him. Sometimes life just didn't seem fair to Naruto, and then his mind began to wonder about how to liven things up at school. A few ideas started to form and he couldn't wait until he started his plan to make school less boring, and one target he would love to try it out on was Sasuke. That guy needed to get that stick removed and he was going to make that boy liven up even if it killed him. That's it for this reading. Hit like and subscribe for a free ticket pass going to the different worlds of anime fanfictions. Looking forward to having you on board again.